Okay, should I get started then, Stephanie?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, well, welcome. It's great to be with you today virtually. Um, I'm going to talk today about strong writing, in particular for science, engineering, and medicine, but I think some of these principles can work for any type of writing, and I've tried to use it in other types of writing that I've done as well. And I'm also going to use at least one example from literature that's not scientific or engineering or medicine. All right, let's get started. One of my favorite quotes is this one that's in a letter from Charles Darwin to his colleague Charles Lyell, his colleague and friend. He said, "A naturalist's life would be a happy one if he had only to observe and never to write." So we have this particular view that writing, and Darwin had it, and we all have it at some point probably in our lives. But and here's the context, a little bit more from the letter, that he was just having a hard time with the writing. It wasn't so exciting to him as being out in the field. But I would like to say, whoops, let's see, there, that I find writing extremely fulfilling work. It is difficult, yes, but it's also extremely fulfilling. I find it probably the most difficult mental work that I do, but I find it probably the most fulfilling mental work that I do. And I also find that writing helps me learn more than I do in other ways. So I hope you will look at writing as a positive thing and not a drudgery. All right, let's go on. Oh, what's happening? All right, somehow, Stephanie, I'm a little stuck. I can't get beyond these first couple of slides. Let's see. Let's try this. Let's see if this will work.
You might just have to kind of manually click through them.
Okay, let's see if this will work. Okay, so this is my outline. I'm going to talk first about strong writing itself, and then we'll talk about some ways to do it with topic sentences, about topic and stress position within a sentence, about informative versus indicative style, and then about starting to write, and then I'll end up with a little bit about ethics. Yeah, this is, okay. All right, so first, strong writing. So if you would just take a minute to read through this, these are the first 3 paragraphs from Old Man and the Sea. So if you just read through this, I'll give you 1 minute. Okay, that's been about a minute. What makes this strong writing? Do any of you have any comments about this? What makes this good writing? This is one of Ernest Hemingway's classic writings, The Old Man and the Sea. Anybody?
I think the description of the imagery really helps to navigate it.
Yes, yes. It's just clear. You can see this old man. You can see the old man, and you can visualize him very well, can't you? So this is kind of the goal we want. We want to be able to write well and descriptively and so forth. So yeah, same problem. So what should be our goals? We want the reader to understand clearly, like Hemingway was able to do. We want the reader to be enlightened, and we want the reader to be drawn in, okay? So let's go to the, I wonder, let me see if I do this. If I start the thing and then try to do sharing. Hold on just 1 second, sorry.
It's almost like technology knows when people are watching and then it decides to do funny things.
Yeah, I don't know that I can do that. Okay, all right. We'll just have to show my slides um, in this viewer. Okay, let's see. Maybe slide on. Let's see. No, I don't know if that'll work. No, that won't work. Okay. All right. So those are our goals. Help the reader, focus on the reader. That's really what you want to do. Focus on the reader, the people who will be reading your work. We want them to understand clearly. You want them to be drawn in and enlightened by your writing. All right, so let's talk about ways to do that.
Are you intending to share
Oh,
any of your
whoops.
slides?
Yeah, oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, sorry. I guess I turned that off, didn't I? There we go. Okay, now can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about topic sentences. All right, so what is a topic sentence? Okay, so the topic sentence gives the topic of the paragraph, and every other sentence in the paragraph should relate to that topic sentence. And if not, your sentence doesn't belong there. It belongs somewhere else in another paragraph. Okay, so let me give you this. Here's one example. Maybe we can. Okay, now this one talks about viruses. Okay, and it's a particular. It's very detailed. It's a very. I don't expect you to not to be able to be drawn into this one, but I just wanted to give an example here. The first sentence here, underlined in green, that is the topic sentence. So everything else in the sentence should have something to do with neighboring pentamers stabilizing each other through invading C-terminal tails, okay? So every sentence should do that. So let's look at the next sentence. And we'll just look at the subject and the verb. Each tail donates. Then the next, down here, the end of the tail forms. Another sentence, a short, can you see my cursor? Can you?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. Okay, so a short alpha helix at the N-terminus clamps, okay? So every additional stabilizing contacts are made. Calcium ions and disulfide linkages are also required, okay? So all of those sentences have something to do, they give more detail about this message here in the first sentence. So that's what you want your paragraphs to do. Now the one in blue does seem a little peripheral sentence, but I notice I put it in parentheses just as an aside, because I did mention that there's 3 of the 6, and then I mentioned about what happens with the other 3. Okay, but anyway, the idea is that every sentence should relate to that topic sentence. Okay, so do that in your writing, and that will really help your writing. All right, let's talk about the topic and stress position within a sentence. So basically, the idea is this. The topic position is the beginning of the sentence. The stress position is the end of the sentence. So you want to have old information at the beginning and new information at the end. This comes from a very good article, and I would encourage you to maybe write this down, this reference. I'll give it a couple more times, but this is an article called The Science of Scientific Writing. It was written 30 years ago, but it was republished 2 years ago because it's been used so much and it's so insightful. So I would encourage you to look at that. So here's some comments from that article. So helping, and again, it's focus on the reader. The readers naturally emphasize the material that arrives at the end of the sentence, but in the topic position, in the beginning of the sentence, the reader needs and expects perspective and context. Okay, so here's another paragraph from that. So when old information consistently arrives in the topic position, it helps readers to construct the logical flow of the argument. It's going to focus attention on one particular strand of the discussion, both backwards and forwards. In contrast, if the topic position is constantly occupied by material that fails to establish linkage and context, readers will have difficulty perceiving both the connection to the previous sentence and the projected role of the new sentence in development of the paragraph. Okay, so as you write, this is a good way to work. Try to put things, give context at the beginning of the sentence, new information at the end, and that will help your reader. And you can see more about this if you'll look at that article. All right, any questions so far about topic sentences or topic position and the stress position?
Hi, I had a question. Please, can
Yes.
you describe in easy meanings, like what is a, like, why is topic sentence used for? I missed that part.
Okay, so topic sentence, let's go back. So the topic sentence gives the topic of the paragraph, okay? And you want, because you want every paragraph to be a unit and to have just basically one principal message in the paragraph. Now that doesn't mean you just say one thing. Like for example, in this one, I'm not just saying this one sentence. I want to give more detail about that particular topic. But if you'll, and particularly in science, if you'll use the first sentence to just say what you're going to tell in the rest of the paragraph, and then this really helps the reader to help follow your reading much better. So if everything that follows in this paragraph has something to do with this first sentence, this is much clearer to the reader, and will really help people be able to follow and understand what you're saying. But you're certainly going to say other things, but put it in another paragraph. And if you can't fit it in here, yeah, make another paragraph. So does that help?
Okay, thank you very much. Yep.
You're welcome. Okay. All right, I'm going to spend probably a little more time on this one, informative versus indicative. Okay, and so what do I mean by that? This is a style thing, but what it is informative. You're going to inform people with your reader with a focused message. That's what I mean by informative. Indicative indicates what message you will receive. So you just tell the reader what you're gonna tell them. So let me give you some examples here. Okay, go ahead and read this sentence and tell me what style you think this is. This is about an article that's talking about analyzing old violins and trying to see what's inside them. If any of you are musicians, probably know about how Stradivarius, for example, violins are just considered the best you can get, and people have wondered for centuries what made them so good. Okay, and so this is trying to answer that question. So just take 20 seconds and read this. All right, what is this saying? Is this giving you a focused message, or is this just telling you what you're going to read in the paper? What'd you say? Anybody? So let's focus on the subject and verbs. Okay, so and we can tell. So it says external micro pixie has been used. Let's go to the next sentence. These have a few subjects. So to obtain this spatially resolved information, single spot analysis, line scans, and area mapping were performed. Local resolution was obtained. Results from all of this stuff, these determination of these different elements, are presented. Semi-quantitative evaluation of line scans recorded is reported. The applied method is discussed in detail, and the results obtained are critically reviewed and compared. Okay, so this is actually indicative style. This is just telling you what you're going to read. It's not going to. It doesn't tell you anything. You know, what was their result? What did they find out? And so this doesn't tell you any of that, anything like that. It just tells you what they did and what you're going to learn. So you have to really read the paper to do it. Now, this is actually the abstract. And those of you who have read scientific papers know that the abstract is actually extremely valuable, because you can get, you don't have to read the whole paper. You can get the message in the paragraph in the abstract, and you should be able to read from that one paragraph the entire message. All right, so let me give you another example. This is the same kind of a study. This was published in, this one was published a year before the other one, and this is the title. Whoops. Wood used by Stradivari and Guarneri. Sorry, I don't know Italian. The material, here's their abstract, and it's actually only one sentence. The material used by the old masters to make exquisite violins may have been chemically manipulated. Okay, so that actually gives you a message. And so that's actually the whole message of their paper right there in that one sentence. And so this is informative style. And this is the best way to write, I think, is to use the informative style. Give people a message. Don't just tell them what they're going to read later. Give them the message right up front. Okay. All right. Here's another example. Okay. This is actually indicative as, again. Let's just notice. Let's just read the again, subject and verb of each sentence. This protocol details. Okay. This protocol describes. This protocol also summarizes and compares. Okay. Now then, maybe this last sentence is a little bit of a message. These options include, and they give you some of those things. But again, this is something that's more indicative. Now, this actually may be appropriate in this case, because this is a protocol. So if you notice, this is nature protocols. So this is giving you how to do something. And so this kind of a paper, it actually is probably is more appropriate. It may be even more appropriate than an informative style to just indicate what they're going to read here, because this, you really do have to, if you're going to do this, you're going to do this method, you're going to have to read the whole protocol, and it'd be hard to give the whole protocol in one paragraph. So there are, I guess one thing about writing is there are particular rules that you follow, but you've got to know when it's appropriate to break the rules, and you should have a good reason to do so. And this is probably a good reason to break this rule that I'm saying about informative versus indicative. But if you're writing a paper about a result, you know, that you found that that I don't know, let's say you find out that eating whole wheat bread will help prevent coronavirus infections. Okay, you want that message to be in right up front. You don't want to say, well, we're going to discuss how whole wheat bread affects coronavirus infections. Okay, it'd be better to give the message up front. Okay, so here's this was actually I taught scientific writing at another university, and I'm giving Stephanie the handout that Stephanie mentioned. It was from that class at another university, and that was a rubric that I used and to determine what a good paper should be like. And we could go through that at the end if we have time. But this is an example from that class of a very good student paper. So so here the student was talking about enhanced fluidity liquid chromatography is, so they're giving a definition of it. So now combining the techniques of all these techniques, the properties, here's the subject, the properties of the mobile gas become more gas-like. these techniques optimize, okay? And the linear velocity of the mobile phase, optimize the density and so forth, allowing faster, more efficient separations. So again, this is giving a message, an informative message. So this is the best way for most scientific papers, this informative style. So, all right, so another thing that I would like to emphasize here is to make sure that your subject and your verb give that message, okay? So let's look at this paragraph. This may have been from that class as well. I don't remember it now. But if you look at this, I want to ask you, what is the topic of this paragraph? And let's go to the next slide because I've underlined things. So let's look at black first. So I had some animations, but they're not working today over Zoom. But so let's look at this. Let's focus right now on the things underlined in black, which gives, here's the subject is it is, okay? And we can add important. It is important. That's really what this sentence is about. The next sentence here, or the third sentence, we'll skip the second one. Results showed. Simple alanine substitution showed. It was concluded. That's really what these sentences are about. So I would encourage you, in addition to trying to write informatively, make sure that the subject and the verb of your sentence give the message. These other words like it is and it was and so forth often are just words you don't really need. So for example, if we look now at the parts underlined in green, if we were to reformat this paragraph, we could focus on what's underlined in green. The hormone actually finds the binding protein. That's something, and we have to probably we'll have to reword this, but that's what you want to focus on in your sentences. Focus on that message, not it is important or kind of words you really don't need. The side chains function mainly to keep the complex bound together. That's what this sentence really is about, okay? And not that the results showed. After your experiment, the results showed, okay? In the next sentence, the side chains accounted for 85% of the binding energy. That's really the message. And you could say the side chains accounted for 85% of the binding area as shown by simple alanine substitution. That would be a better way to write that sentence, I think. Okay, and then the last one, HGH, or here's the definition up here. Human growth hormone simply locates its receptor through random and rapid collisions. Okay, so try to avoid words like these that don't really add and help. And again, put the subject and the verb of the sentence as the main message of the sentence. And of course, your paragraph, your topic sentence in your paragraph, that subject and verb should be the topic of that paragraph. All right, any questions on informative and indicative? All right, let's go on. And if you have questions, think of them. We can do them at the end as well. All right, so one of the most difficult things about writing is just getting started. You know, so how are you going to do this? So I like this quote. Okay, and this quote is dated because Red Smith was using a typewriter, and we just substitute computer. Okay, so writing is easy. You just stare at the computer until drops of blood appear on your forehead. Often getting started is the hardest, most difficult part. Those of you who have taken chemistry can, this is like activation energy. It's just really, really high, okay, to get going. So here are some tips that I would give you, suggest, just to get started. So be alone somewhere, remove distractions, you know, turn off your cell phone, get away, maybe go to wherever, library, maybe you're alone in your house, whatever, in your apartment, whatever. Just be alone, be away from distractions, and give yourself a few hours and just write down your ideas. Okay, so just write down your ideas. Don't worry about spelling, grammar. Don't worry about that. And don't worry that you're putting them clearly. Don't worry about a topic sentence right now, okay? Just write your ideas down. Don't worry about informative or indicative. Just write stuff down. You'll always be able to come back and edit later. But if you just to get going, just get your ideas out. Get them all out, okay? Now, if you get stuck on something, just make a note to come back later to some point. Okay, you get something and you know that you want to talk about whatever. It's let's say you're talking about whole wheat and coronaviruses, okay, or something. You think of something you should say about whole wheat or coronaviruses, and you get stuck. Just make a note that this is kind of what you're thinking of, and you'll come back later and fix it. Okay, and perhaps don't even enter your references right now. Referencing is extremely important, but you just indicate, maybe say, if you know the paper is by Smith et al., just say Smith et al. You could write that down, or just put a ref, or or put question marks, question marks or something. Just the main thing is just get these ideas out. So the two quotes that I've given, the Red Smith and the Charles Darwin quotes, were from a class I took back in graduate school at Purdue University, and my teacher on writing gave us those quotes and this idea about getting started. And so I want to, his name was Charles Bracker, and anyway, just want to acknowledge him for that. This can work. This method can work, to just get it out, get it down, and then come back. This is another thing too. I think one of the things that makes starting writing most difficult is that you expect to write perfectly at first, and you have a great idea in your head, but it's not coming out very well, and because we sometimes expect perfection at first, the best writing that can be just extremely inhibiting to us. Remember, the best writing takes time, and you have to go back. You have to rewrite. The great writers went back. They don't just. It's very rare that they would write something out and that would be the final draft. So if that's the case, you should start early. Don't procrastinate this. One of the things you'll see on the rubric that I'll hand out is one thing that you could one of the things I could tell about a C or worse, a C grade paper or less, would be something like you could tell it just been written the night before. Okay, you can tell. It takes time. It just takes time. Get feedback from others when you can. One of the things we like to do in that writing class was to make students turn it in 3 times, and so we could give them feedback twice before they turned in their final draft, and that was extremely helpful in helping students write better. So you need to get feedback from others, and particularly expect something you write isn't going to be clear to others. I remember as a postdoc, doing my postdoc that I would write something and it sounded good to me, and I would go in and show my mentor, and he couldn't understand it, or what his understanding was. He would say this is what he understood it to be, and it was something completely different from what I had intended. And so be open to criticism. Remember that it might be clear to you, but it's not going to be clear to others. And so expect that, and don't be offended. And in fact, one of the hardest things about this is that you've put all this mental sweat into it, and it can be extremely difficult to have somebody say that it doesn't make sense, because it made sense to you, it makes sense to you, but just expect that what you say and write down isn't going to be clear to everyone, and the more you're open to criticism, the better your writing will be. It really works. It's amazing how much help you can get on this. Sometimes when you send papers off to review, a reviewer for peer reviewers will sometimes come back and sometimes it's easy to get mad at what they say, because again, they like my mentor, my postdoc mentor, you feel like it was clear, but it really isn't. And often all you need to do is just reword things. It's not that it's not that they're saying your science is crappy. It's just that you need to make it clearer. It's just not clear to others. So that's just an extremely valuable part of writing. All right. And also, as often if you put something away and come back to it, you'll reread it and find, oh, this paragraph is, you can tell that it's bad, or that doesn't make sense here. Be willing to give that up. Be willing to throw out some of your writing. One thing that helps me a lot is if I've written a paragraph and I put a lot of effort into it and I think there's some good ideas in there, but it's clear it's not going to work. Or if I've gotten feedback from others that say that this doesn't work and this is not clear and doesn't fit in what you're trying to say, I make a file or put it at the end of the document in a place called extra words. And so that way I still have it. And if I want it someday, I can get it again. And that way I'm not just completely deleting it. So do that. That can be helpful as well, to just put something in an extra words file that you could come back to if necessary. I found that really helps me to be able to give up writing that I've put a lot of effort into. Okay, I'd like to end and then open, and then it looks like we'll have some time for the rubric. But I'd like to end this part of the talk with a discussion about ethics. So ethics is extremely important, and those of us in science, engineering, and medicine, especially those of us who are being funded by public money, we are absolutely obligated to be ethical to the public. And I would recommend that you decide now that you're going to be ethical. And in particular with writing, science, engineering, and medicine, decide now that you will not plagiarize. I think I've misspelled that. Anyway, decide now that you're not going to plagiarize and reference other people's ideas. It will win you friends. There's just no reason, no sensible reason for you to plagiarize. Don't do it. Don't do it. Decide now that you're not going to do it. And so I mentioned when you're when you're starting to write, you don't need to put your references right then, but that doesn't mean you don't need to do your references. You do. Just indicate that you need to put a reference there. I just mean you don't want to take time to write sometimes putting references in can take a lot of time. And for starting writing, you can just make a note. You'll come back later and put a reference in, but make sure you reference people. Yeah, just don't do it. It's just not worth it. And especially don't fake results. Don't even go there, and decide now that you're not going to do it, because when you're tempted and when your papers, you're trying to get it out and you've got some fantastic result and you realize you've got to make another control experiment or something like that, just go do it. Don't fake results at all. Yeah, it's just not worth it at all. Okay, thank you. That's that part. But let's go now. I'll bring up the let's bring up the rubric. We have some time for that. So here it is. Let's see. Hope you can all see that. Sidebar. There we go.
Are you, Dr. Belnap, looking at the rubric right now?
Yes. Can you see it?
We cannot see the rubric.
Oh, you cannot see. Oh, that's right. I probably need to share something else. Let's see. Stop share.
The rubric is, the link to that handout is in the chat.
Here it is.
So.
Here it is. That's right. I have to. Now can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is what I thought in my class were the characteristics of an A paper. The paper enlightens the reader's attention, enlightens the reader, holds their attention, and is clear and easy to read. Then second, notice again, this is again citing people, that's important. I put that second. So these are in order of what I thought was most important. Now this was a chemistry class, chemistry writing class. So I said the paper has a clear message that has something to do with chemistry, biochemistry, or molecular biology. Okay, so you could substitute whatever subject you're working on there. The paper is organized so that ideas logically flow from one concept to another. Then here, each paragraph has a clear, focused topic sentence. Each remaining sentence in the paragraph refers to or enhances the message of the topic sentence. We didn't talk about figures today, but figures and tables significantly enhance understanding. And you'll need to decide if you need a figure or a table for your data or for your information. And then for those, the captions and footnotes explain everything without reference to the main text, and they're clear. So I mentioned a little bit about abstracts, but abstracts give a clear summary of the paper. Wording is informative. I made the students do the exercise in writing informative abstracts. The main message of the paper is clearly stated. Yeah, basically you want your whole paper in that paragraph, and you can do it. You can do it. It takes time, and I think I've spent a whole day or more on writing abstracts before. They take time. But they're worth writing well. So next, paper does not waste words. Every word, sentence, phrase, sentence, paragraph contributes to the main message. The introduction focuses on the main message and gets to the point. What's your focus point about your paper about? And then your introduction ends with a succinct statement of the main message. Conclusion has a brief summary, but followed by an insightful discussion about what issues or questions remain. Additional experiments are proposed. So wording is accurate. Abbreviations and unusual terms are defined. That's particularly important in science. We need to make sure we define, because it's easy to lose people that way. Now, here's another one we didn't really talk about too much about, but try to use the active voice as much as you can, and passive voice is justified. Sentences are informative, not indicative. There's that again. And then this thing that we talked about old information at the beginning and new information at the end. Then we had some particular structures for format and so forth. And as you write, you will have that as well. Usually, follow that. Make sure you use the format that you're asked to do. And don't make it longer than you're supposed to do. That's really important. The paper has only minimal discussion of applications. This was particularly important for this particular. It was a review paper that they were writing, but I guess in terms of all of your writing, don't give distractions. Sometimes you can get too distracted away from your main message. That's the main point here. Don't go off onto tangents. And then I think this is not as so important but it can be distracting, but this should not be a primary focus of your writing. I mean, you do want to use proper spelling and so forth, but that's not as important as the other things. So that's why it's last. All right, so the rest of these have some ideas about, basically they don't follow this, that A paper. For example, here, C paper, it's difficult to read, message is unclear, they don't cite some stuff, it's not logically connected, anyway, so forth. So you can look at that. Anyway, any questions on that or anything else?
Hi, one quick question.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, where can I give the feedback for this, event, Strong Writing in STEM? I can't find the link on my Utah portal or any place, where I can give the feedback.
The
Oh, this-
evaluation form, I will put that link in the chat.
Where will you put it?
In the chat box over down in the corner of the screen, if you pull up the chat.
Oh, okay. Nothing till now.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you mentioned like kind of rules for structuring a sentence with old information at the beginning and new information later on. Suppose you have the freedom of choosing the sections of your writing. Would that follow the same rule, or what would you suggest in going about deciding how you break up your writing into sections?
Yes. Basically, the introduction should introduce the topic. Yes. So you're going to go from introducing the topic and talk about old information. Put that in context. Yes. So you always have to have some form of an introduction. But yeah, you want the beginning of your writing to have old stuff, and then end with the new stuff. And in your conclusion, like for example, in scientific papers, you have an introduction, then you'll either have results or you have materials and methods. The results, give the new stuff, the new information, the new data, and then at the end, you're going to put that all into context. So you're going to wrap it around and put it in context of what you started with. So yes, so it's basically the same idea. You say at the end what it means, whereas at the beginning you say why are we doing this study? Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
point. Good point.
In your rubric, characteristics for the A paper, you make reference that an abstract should be informative. I've always thought of an abstract as an indicative paragraph, essentially telling you what you're going to tell the reader what you're going to tell them. Why should it be informative rather than indicative?
Because you want to really give the message of the whole message of the paper in one paragraph. So for example, if we went back to those two studies about violins, old violins, the one just said, oh, this is what we investigated. We looked for all these elements in the varnishes, in the violins, but they didn't even tell you what they found. Whereas the other one told you, yes, it looks like these varnishes, it looks like the wood in these instruments was chemically manipulated. So you want the reader to be able to, for example, yourself, if you're trying to investigate violins, right? You would have to read that whole long paper really to understand what the message was, and it may not be important for what you're doing. And so this really helps the reader to be able to know whether he or she should invest the time into reading that whole long thing. And you kind of want to draw them in. Okay, that's the reason. Yeah.
So I guess a follow-up question would be, is there any place for indicative writing for STEM papers?
I would say yes, in particular in methods, if it's just about methods. Okay, if you're going to give a recipe for how to do PCR or ELISA assays or something, it would be really difficult to describe the whole assay in an informative way in the abstract. But what's helpful to a reader is that they would know that this paper is going to give me the protocol that I need to do this particular method. Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, when you're getting feedback on your writing, I've heard sometimes that it can be helpful to actually get feedback from someone outside of your field, even someone who has no technical know-how, just from what you're saying of the sentences are that easy to digest that they don't understand what you're talking about, but it makes sense. What would you say about that? How much of different kind of people, different sets of eyes do you want on your paper?
Yes, that can be very helpful. that can be very helpful to understand. But if somebody, if you give it to someone who has no understanding of science at all, you know, think of yourselves, of ourselves, when we were in elementary school or junior high school. I mean, if they may not be able to understand it well enough, but also don't fall into the trap that, well, I'm so smart that I can't learn from somebody who isn't initiated in this. Yeah, but in fact, I think sometimes you could even take papers to a place like the writing labs, and where it's often English majors, right, who are non-science, non-STEM people, but often they'll be able to help you because they can look at it and say, well, this, your paragraph structure or so forth doesn't really seem to be logical or follow. So yes, you can often get good help from them.
All right, thank you.
And especially if you're writing something for the public, of course. Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
So what is your process for making sure that you've incorporated all of this like great information you've given to us into a piece of writing? So I feel like looking at it, it's really good, but it's also a little bit intimidating to make sure you've got all these steps down. And at least for me, where I'm in my writing, I think very rarely I'd be able to just put this all together on the fly. So do you have like a proofreading process that you use, or how do you make sure you're using all these steps?
So again, when you're first starting out, don't worry about any of these details. Just get your information down. And I think the key is to take the time you need to be able to do this. Do it well. Okay. I mean, if your paper's due tomorrow and you start now, it'll be pretty hard to do these things. But if you have a paper due in a month and you start now, you'll be able to do this much better. So I think that's the key. Just take time. And I'd say the first priority would be to do the topic sentences for your paragraphs. That would be the first priority. Make sure that your topic sentences, every paragraph has a good topic sentence, and everything within that paragraph fits within that, or has something to do with that topic sentence. And again, if it doesn't, then rearrange your paragraph. So put it in a different place. So that's, I think, the most important one. And then if you have time to do the others. So I think if you do that, I think if you get one main message from me today, if you'll write topic sentences, clear topic sentences, and put everything make sure everything in a paragraph relates to that topic sentence. That's maybe the best thing you could learn from me today. That's the thing you could do. But again, don't do that in your editing. Do that in your editing after you've got all your ideas down.
That's great. Thanks.
I'm kind of curious, what's the most consistent error in writing you've seen amongst your students?
Well, it's been a while since I had taught the class, but I probably at the beginning, they struggled with the topic sentences. I think that was probably one of the harder things to get going, but I think they got it after a while. And again, just if you'll take the time, you can do that. I try to worry less about capitalization, the last thing on that A paper, the capitalization, punctuation, and so forth. I think too, it was easy for people to get in science. It's easy to write and lose people. I think that was another thing, to write clearly. I think that was another issue. So.
And last question for me. Sorry, you're asking so many.
No, that's great.
What role does outlining play?
That can be helpful. Yes, that can be helpful. And if it works for you, do it. Yeah. And in fact, one of the ways you could do it one of the ways that outlining would work real well is if your outline includes just every topic sentence. Use those topic sentences for your outline. So you can do it either way. Sometimes it's helpful to do an outline and then write it out, but other times it's good to go backwards. So you could take what you've got and take all your topic sentences and see if that makes sense as an outline, and it should make sense. So
It seems like you could set up or just evaluate your flow a lot more that way.
yes, oh yes, absolutely, yes, absolutely. All right, anything else? You've been a good group. Thank you. And if I can help anybody, please send me an email. I'd be happy to help you.